Okay, Pennywise Pauper match 4 with Acid Trip. We have a 2-land hand, we have no white mana for all these Journey to Nowheres in our hand. If we draw lands, and also white lands, then we can play Journeys, and then we can eventually play Mole Drifter. If we draw spells that are blue, we might be okay. Spreading Seas and Preordain can help us dig a little further. This hand is so good against aggro if I draw a white. Against control, it's fairly bad. It's a risky keep. I think I'm going to make the discipline decision and mulligan here, but I really want to keep this hand. Alright, this hand is better. We'll put a Preordain on top, that's just fine. We can play that turn 1. Alright, our opponent leads off with a Ponder. And they do not shuffle their library. We have a Preordain. Chancery, I don't want that many lands. Spreading Seas, not that good against Island. I'll dig for something else. Tranquil Cove. Delver of Secrets. Evolving Wilds. Alright, we're probably up against Izzet Blitz. So we could play a Stalker here, but that doesn't really do anything if our opponent flips Delver. And if our opponent doesn't flip Delver, it's only 1 damage. Core Skyfisher and Journey to Nowhere. Core Skyfisher is kind of a good blocker, but I just want as much removal as possible against Izzet Blitz, so I'm going to keep the Journey and get rid of the Flyer. Our opponent fetches for a mountain, fail to flip Delver, which is pretty good for us. And they play another Delver. Well, here's the question. Do I Journey or do I Seagate Oracle? I think I'm going to Seagate Oracle here. It's a little bit riskier play. If our opponent does flip a Delver, obviously we would have wished we could have repealed one, or journeyed one. But okay, I like Island here. Core Skyfisher, again, it can block well, but having an untapped land means I get to go Journey plus Journey next turn if I want to. Our opponent put a Lightning Bolt to our Dome instead of getting rid of Seagate, so... And they have a Gush that they reveal. Alright, attack us for 6, down to 12. Alright. So now we get to see if our opponent has any counter magic or any Apostle's Blessings. So the first one, Apostle's Blessing, can't really get us. It can only save one. The second one, Apostle's Blessing, can really get us, because if he does it while Journey's on the stack, then I would have to exile my own creature. So he protects the first one, and we hope he doesn't have another for the second. We're still on a pretty quick clock here, and we need to find more removal. Actually, I take that back. Dreamstalker is removal. So we can Dreamstalker back the Journey, and then Journey the Insectile Aberration. Specifically, we can get back the Journey that doesn't have anything under it. Opponent has Gush in hand, has already used up 2 of their bolts. See if this works. Alright, get to gain a life off the Tranquil Cove. And start the long journey of trying to kill our opponent. And they put the 3rd bolt at our face. Luckily we gained a life just now, so we're not dead to the 4th bolt. Gitaxian Probe for life. Our opponent now has Gush online, and they have a Nivix Cyclops. Seagate Oracle. Alright. Need to find a removal spell right this second. Core Skyfisher. So that's a blocker at least. We could get in 1 damage by attacking with 2 creatures, or we can leave them back to block. I think at this point we're so far away from winning that we have to get a little lucky, so I think I'm going to be greedy and go for the 1 damage play. We don't lose unless our opponent has Team or Battle Rage, or unless they get rid of both of our creatures. Or unless they go get rid of 1 creature plus Apostle's Blessing to get past the other. Or unless they have Piracy Charm plus Gush, which they do. So Piracy Charm is pretty cool. Its most commonly used mode is the second mode, +2, -1. However, Island Walk in a format with so many blue decks is often very relevant. So it actually might be untrue that the second mode is the most used. It might be possible that in the Izzet Blitz deck, the first mode is actually even more useful. So we lose game 1, and we need to sideboard in as much removal as possible. So against this deck, I definitely want the Circle of Protection red. They can board in Flaring Pain to turn this off, but if they don't draw the Flaring Pain or they decide not to board it in, then it's pretty good against both Kiln Fiend and Nivix Cyclops. I want the Lone Missionary to gain life and just to be a blocker. Serrated Arrows is pretty much too slow. Spreading Seas is too slow, and it's actually a liability because it helps them turn Gush online if they don't have 2 islands yet. Reality Acid is also too slow, which leaves me needing to bring in 5 cards, which is pretty difficult. Dispels and Counterspells are fine. They can counter both creatures, and the Dispels can counter the relevant cards like Team or Battle Rage. But that brings me needing 1 more card. All 3 of these cards are good against Delvers specifically, and not very good versus the other creatures. But Stormbound Geist also presents a clock, so I think I'm going to do that. And we will submit. Alright, game 2, we get to play first. And this is a hand. We need to find some more lands, but Preordain can help us do that. Azorius Chancery and Dispel. Do I want the Dispel is the question. I don't really think I have time to draw a Dispel right now. I'd rather draw actual removal for creatures than just counter the pump spells they're going to be doing. Alright, play the Chancery, pick up our island. Next turn we have Seagate Oracle or Lone Missionary into Face Fetters. Both Face Fetters and Reality Acid are somewhat worse in this matchup, because Apostle's Blessing can make them fall off even if we got in and were able to cast them at some point. But Face Fetters does gain us life, so it stayed in, while the Reality Acids are pretty slow and they went out. Momentary Blink does not really matter, so I'll just take the land so I can get up to this Mole Drifter hardcast. I suppose I could Momentary Blink my Lone Missionary, but I don't want to waste time trying to do that. I'd rather just play more creatures. Opponent has a Kiln Fiend. Okay, first test as to whether our opponent has Counterspell or Apostle's Blessing. If they do, they're going to basically have to use it here, so we don't gain 4 and shut off a Kiln Fiend. And it resolves. Well, that was very good for us. That's going to buy us a pretty good amount of time. Well, none of that flipped. I wish I had attacked with the Seagate Oracle, but I didn't know that was going to happen. They cast the Gataxian Probe they just revealed. So now they know our hand. And attack us for 3. And play out a Nivix Cyclops. And another Delver. So they just dumped their whole hand on the battlefield, didn't they? I could play Mole Drifter to try to dig for more removal, but right here I think I like just playing 2 more blockers. Lone Missionary can chump block a Nivix Cyclops. Stormbound Geist can trade with the Delver in the air. Our opponent could potentially go off with like Gush plus Bolt plus Teamer Battle Rage on Nivix Cyclops, but they could do that even if I cast a Mulldrifter. The other Delver flips, revealing Lightning Bolt, which is not good for us. There's the Gush. There's a Ponder. So one of the things that this deck lacks, speaking of my deck, the Acid Trip deck, not the Izzet Blitz deck, is instant speed interaction. Either removal or even counter magic. After boarding, you get some counter magic, but the fact that your main removal engine is Journey to Nowhere, which is efficient, and Reality Acid, which is really wonky but sometimes good, and it's all sorcery speed, is not very good for you. Our opponent did decide to shuffle with that Ponder. There's the Piracy Charm for Island Walk on this Cyclops. Does not have double strike yet, so we might be able to live through this turn. Lightning Bolt targeting us. Mutagenic Growth targeting the Cyclops. That's 18. So we're going to go to 1 here if our opponent has nothing. Okay, Journey to Nowhere. Well, that's certainly a start. Get rid of this Nivix Cyclops. And hopefully be able to block the Insectile Aberration with the Stormbound Geist. And now I'll play Core Skyfisher. I'll pick up Lone Missionary in case I survive this turn. You can gain us some life. Gush, okay. We're not dead to just one removal spell. Although I guess we are because it could just be pointed at our face instead. Opponent has a Nivix Cyclops. Another Lone Missionary. Well, that's not awful. I think I'll go ahead and do that. Keep us from dying to bolts. So now I think I can afford to attack with my flyers. I realize I'm taking at least 3 on the crackback from the Insectile Aberration now, but if the Nivix Cyclops doesn't get Island Walk or Trample, then we can race them. Okay. This could be it. We could win here. So I'm going to attack with all. Even if our opponent kills one of the Lone Missionaries, we can pick up a different one with the Dreamstalker. And we win. Excellent. So our opponent didn't have removal, and they bricked a couple turns in a row while we were able to get there after falling to 1 damage. Let's see if we can do that again. Okay, we have no removal, but we do have a turn 1 Preordained and a turn 2 Missionary. And our opponent mulliganed, so maybe this will be enough to get there. Our opponent kept 6 and scribed at the bottom. They decided not to shuffle their library. Seagate Oracles for days. I think I already have enough card draw with the other Preordained that I have as well, that I don't want to waste time with these. I'm also not going to be able to cast one on turn 3 unless I draw an untapped land, because I'm playing the Lone Missionary on turn 2. Skyfisher, okay, they can pick up my Missionary potentially. Alright, our opponent does not have a creature just yet, which is quite good for us. Alright, there's the Kiln Fiend. I'm going to attack first. If our opponent wants to cast like a Brainstorm or something, is like the only way they could really get us here. Although I take that back. It doesn't pump toughness, it only pumps power. So we have that. We're going to play Skyfisher. We're going to pick up our Lone Missionary. Now we have a blocker for the Kiln Fiend. And see if our opponent can combo off and kill us here. There's the Bolt targeting Skyfisher. They get in for 4. Plain Island, okay. I'm going to do Preordain into Lone Missionary, I believe. Save this Pilgrim for another turn. I don't need the other Circle of Protection red. I don't believe our opponent can do anything about it once it resolves except for Flaring Pain, which doesn't get helped by having 2 different Circle of Protection reds. Gain 4. Gain another 1. Next turn I can cast Muldrifter, or I can play Helios Pilgrim plus Circle, or I can play Circle plus leave open mana. I have some options. If our opponent did not board in Flaring Pain, we could just win, basically, by sticking a Circle of Protection red. Alright. I'm going to attempt to trade off here. And amazingly, it is successful. Journey to Nowhere. Alright, well I'm going to start off with that. Play my land first in case they happen to be playing Mana Leak, even though we haven't seen any yet. And that is going to not work due to Apostle's Blessing. Alright, time to stick Circle of Protection red and see if they have Flaring Pain or not. Kiln Fiend, okay. Core Skyfisher. So I'm going to play that. Return to Tranquil Cove. Gain a life. I want to be able to have something to attack with in the air. If our opponent has a Flaring Pain and they need to take a couple turns digging to it, then I want to be able to close out the game as quickly as possible. And this still leaves up 3 mana, so I have the ability to activate Circle of Protection a couple times. Alright, Circle of Protection does read damage to you, so I can't use it to prevent damage to my core Skyfisher, unfortunately. And we're going to start circling and hope that our opponent does not have Flaring Pain in hand. Now, I'm not really sure how Flaring Pain works if they use it after the Circle of Protection is already on. I think it'll still prevent the prevention. Okay, they got a no damage, which is a very good sign. I'm going to play another flyer. Let's try to start putting this game away. This time leaving open only 2 mana for Circle of Protection red, but I think that's okay. It's possible that even if our opponent did not board in Flaring Pain, that they're waiting to see how we play with the Circle of Protection red. Because if we put it out there and then we just keep on tapping out for spells, our opponent could still kill us. So they need to know if we're the type of people who realize that we have to keep mana open for Circle of Protection red at all times. Our opponent could get us here with a double Apostle's Blessing, but I don't expect them to have that. And this just shuts down the attacks a little bit better in case they do draw Flaring Pain. Opponent has another Nivix Cyclops. Okay, getting even more of a buffer here with our life total. We have a chump blocker now. So the ways we could lose this game is our opponent goes Flaring Pain for red mana. It says damage can't be prevented this turn. Then they flash it back for another red mana. then they also gush and play something else. Maybe like Island Walk with Piracy Charm. That could certainly get there. Which is the reason why I'm still running on these journeys, even though I have a Circle of Protection red. Because eventually they could find Flaring Pain, and I would want them to have as few creatures as possible when that happens. Second Kiln Fiend. I would love to get this Muldrifter down and start attacking in the air and speeding up this 2 damage a turn clock. However, I don't want to tap out and not have Circle Protection mana. So I'm playing Dreamstalker here. I'm actually going to return Tranquil Cove this time. It would be nice to return Lone Missionary, but I want to have 2 different colors of blocker on the field because that plays around Apostle's Blessing nicely. Another Lone Missionary is cool. Opponent might be forced to start bolting this Stormbound Geist to slow us down, even though it puts a counter on it. Our opponent ponders. And they chose to shuffle. Gitaxian Probe, so they know we don't have any instants or any way to interact besides Circle of Protection right now. So we're going to go ahead and block, and we're going to make our opponent make the first move. And our opponent concedes. Excellent. So Circle of Protection red got there. Either our opponent did not board in their Flaring Pains, or they didn't have them in the sideboard, or they just couldn't find them. But that's basically how you navigate that match. It's very lucky from our point of view that we did draw our Circle of Protection red, and that our opponent did not draw a Flaring Pain, that those two things happened at the same time. But a win is a win, and we move on to match 5.